Brothers, it has not been a very good week for Piers Morgan. He was humiliated and disgraced and dissected by Nick Fuentes during their interview, debate, conversation. The reason why people don't really know how to define it is because Piers Morgan basically brought Nick Fuentes on to try to morally scold him, wag his finger, tell him that he's a naughty, naughty boy. And Nick Fuentes responded by saying, fuck you, and I actually find you objectionable. And honestly, Piers Morgan had no response for that. He had no response for the arguments of Nick Fuentes and came across looking pathetic. But the thing that really sealed Piers Morgan's political fate is the aftermath. Because, first of all, Piers Morgan was revealed to be a complete and total cuck. Somebody that is constantly humiliated by his wife that cheats on him. Apparently, his wife has an Ashley Madison account. His wife talks about how she wears the pants in the relationship. There are articles about her being sick of him, thinking he's ugly, humiliating him over and over and over again in a way that is just emasculating and pathetic. So Piers Morgan's masculinity and credibility took an absolute pounding. But actually, that's not the end of it. Believe it or not, Piers Morgan made the situation worse because he realizes that he lost. And now he's in damage control mode. And how does a boomer like Piers Morgan attempt to try to reclaim power and control? Well, he brings on Dr. Phil. I'm not kidding you. He brings on Dr. Phil so that Dr. Phil can just insult Nick Fuentes for like 10 minutes and talk about how right Piers was and you did the right thing, Piers. This is like a therapy session. This is so humiliating and pathetic. Instead of Piers going, look, there were some things that I did wrong in this debate. I admit that, I came out looking very badly and I'm a cuck. He's not going to admit that, but like, he's actually going on and doing a show about Nick Fuentes after the interview and bringing on panelists. And the whole purpose of this is to try to make him feel better. It's literally a therapy session for this boomer that has been humiliated. And so I want to play a little bit of this just so that you get the full context. And Piers, my advice to you would be to move on. Like, I would never have recommended that you do the show. Because not only did you lose the debate, but now you are humiliating yourself. Because you think that you can still get the upper hand. You can't. Because you're not willing to contend with the arguments. Your response to Nick Fuentes talking about the extraordinary phenomenon of black crime, specifically black crime. Black crime not only on other black people, but other races as well, that is not proportionate. It's not even close. In fact, you tried to fact check Nick Fuentes. Afterwards, it was revealed that black people commit like 10 times more violent crime than white people. It is a shocking number, and you can't wrestle with that. When Nick Fuentes is talking about crime on the street and people feeling unsafe, what did you do? You pivoted towards, well, white people commit school shootings. As though these numbers are comparable. Like, the fact is, black people commit 50, like, this whole thing of, like, it's like 5% of the magicians use 53% of the dark magic spells. Like, the whole thing is predicated on statistics that we know are true, but you, Piers, are part of a boomer generation that thinks that, well, if we do whataboutism, if we talk about this other unrelated issue, then suddenly the first issue just goes away. It's not going away, Piers. It's not going away. And the more that you demonstrate that you're afraid of this topic, the more that people are going to press you on it. But anyway, let me play a segment of this so that you can get a full taste of what we're dealing with. Let's watch Piers Morgan's therapy session, shall we?
It took courage for you to put him on, and I'm glad that you did, because if
It took courage for you to bring him on. So Nick has gone on the Patrick Bet David podcast. He's gone on a podcast with Tucker Carlson. Nick Fuentes went on with Candace Owens. He has been on several different podcasts. It is not brave to bring Nick Fuentes on your show. That is not bravery. So already Dr. Phil coming out of the gate here and telling you a load of bullshit. It's not brave of you just to bring somebody on your show, because the truth is you bring people that are worse than Nick Fuentes on your show. You didn't have an existential crisis when you brought on Hassan Piker onto your show, or when you bring on Cenk Uygur onto your show. So it's ridiculous that you should have this therapy session live on stream. We should be doing this in my office where no one can see you cry like a woman. Like, do you understand? It is not brave for you to bring Nick Fuentes on your show. It's not brave. It's not courageous. It's not, oh, you're so stunning and beautiful and amazing. No, it's the bare minimum. You have a different point of view. You have a difference of opinion. It is the bare minimum to bring him on your show and to air those ideas out. You, like the pathetic pig, stodgy coward that you are, you decided that you were going to try to get him on all these gotchas, which, by the way, has been done 1,000 times before and it hasn't worked. You, Piers, are somebody that is living on the dying embers of a system that did work, which had masculinity as the forefront. But you want to die with the last benefits of that system intact, and you basically are going out. I mean, what are you, 60 now, 70? With both of your fingers up to the next generation. And the next generation is like, well, you know what? Fuck you. And guess what, Piers? You're going to lose because you're out of touch. You are out of touch, and there are going to be more people than you, because your generation's dying out. There are going to be more people that are part of this new generation that if you won't gracefully exit the political stage, they will remove you. And I'm not talking about violence. I'm talking about just viewership. I'm talking about relevance. It has nothing to do with violence. So like, oh, they're gonna end Piers Morgan. No, the way they're gonna end Piers Morgan is they're gonna watch Nick Fuentes, and he's gonna become so much bigger than you that you're not even going to be able to have a voice in this. People are gonna be saying, "Wow, Nick, you're really generous for bringing on somebody like Piers Morgan onto your show." My point is that if you treat this in the cavalier way that you have, you are going to find yourself on the outs with no way back in.
an adult, if there's not an adult in the room to ask the hard questions and hold these type of voices accountable, then they just run unchecked.
Right.
And you saw what happened here. I spent a lot of time doing trial science work in the litigation arena, and we always say your story goes a lot better if you're the only one telling it.
Mm.
And that's what people mean when they talk about echo chambers and living in a bubble. And what you did was hold him accountable for what he said.
Right.
Dr. Phil, apparently you haven't looked at the comments and the feedback, because it's almost universal that the Piers Morgan got his shit pushed in. And I know that may be a little bit too homosexual for you, but the fact is, you fucking bald clown, that Piers Morgan was humiliated. He was destroyed. Why are you here feeding him false information to satisfy his ego? No, Piers Morgan was destroyed. He was vivisected. Why are you here peddling lies that no one's going to buy. No one is going to buy. Are you that out of touch? Are you that out of touch that you thought that Piers Morgan was the one that came out looking good? Nobody thought, even people that really don't like Nick Fuentes were going, yeah, damn. Sargon of Akkad does not like Nick Fuentes, and he's done several videos on this interview talking about how bad Piers Morgan looked. Piers Morgan was humiliated on a level that I didn't even think was possible. So please, Dr. Phil, spare us. Spare us this bullshit. You know it's bullshit. We know it's bullshit. It's time that we stop lying to each other. It's time that we told the truth. And the truth is that Piers Morgan had no counter to anything that Nick Fuentes said. And by the way, a lot of what Nick Fuentes said was true. When Nick Fuentes was talking about the crime statistics, what was Piers Morgan's response? Well, white people do it just as much. They don't. We know they don't. The statistics don't bear that out. Grok doesn't say that. The FBI doesn't say that. Nobody says it. The only people that say that are these old boomers that are trying to shame these younger kids and saying, well, this is the way you do it. You have to live in a colorblind meritocracy. No, that is done. That has failed. That has failed the younger generation. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to be honest. We're not going to sweep things under the rug, and we're not going to destroy people because they say things that are uncomfortable anymore. We're just not. We are going to wrestle and grapple with ideas, and we are going to encounter them and deal with them head on. That is the only way forward. And those who are unable to do that will be left by the wayside. But this is just pathetic. This is just a conversation. And this is why Piers Morgan put it on. This is why Piers Morgan put it on. Because this entire conversation, whether it's Dr. Phil or it's the panel, all of it is for Piers to be like, I need to do damage control. I need to reclaim my ego. I need to make it seem like I'm the victor. And so Dr. Phil spends an inordinate amount of time. He spends a ridiculous amount of time calling Nick Fuentes an incel. He's a loser. He got to push back on his ideas.
And of course, that's not near as much fun when a narcissist is not in a room full of people that are nodding along with them. And you just said, listen, I'm not going to introduce anything new here. I'm going to ask you about what you said and let you explain what you said. And there was no ambush here. He could have predicted with great accuracy what you were going to ask. You just ask it in a very critical thinking sort of way, and that was very uncomfortable for him because someone was holding him to account. And thank you for doing that, because his opinions that he's spreading are ugly, they're corrosive, they're deeply un-American.
And this is why the boomers are losing. They're not deeply un-American. They're not corrosive. What is corrosive is the ideology that Piers Morgan is pushing, liberalism, this progressivism, this idea that when you talk about the extraordinary amount of crime in the black community that is specific and unique to this one race and group of people, when you counter that conversation with, yeah, but there are school shooters and those school shooters are white. I mean, not only is that a different type of crime altogether, but on top of that, the numbers of school shootings, we're not even talking about anything comparable. Not even close. The number of shootings in Chicago over a weekend is more than the school shootings in decades. So to play this game, it is absurd. No, you are losing because you are too weak and too incompetent and too arrogant to be able to have a conversation with somebody who's saying something in a way that you don't find comfortable. And that ultimately is pathetic. Weak men make hard times. And you, Dr. Phil, and you, Piers Morgan, you are both weak men. Now, I think Dr. Phil can be funny sometimes. I think he can be funny. He's got that old drawl, and he's like, kind of like an old school kind of, Texas kind of guy. But you're embarrassing. You're really embarrassing.
And that's the psychology of extremism. I think that he is not empowering young men; he's manipulating them. And Piers, I'm going to take a breath here in a minute and let you comment on what I'm saying. But this is the same algorithm that social media uses. If people like something, they click.
All right, so a boomer trying to explain the algorithm is crazy. But anyway, now this segment is called Pierce on why he asked about Fuentes' father, and Dr. Phil just sort of affirms that no, you're right to bring up his father and try to call his father racist. Um, Now this segment is called Dr. Phil. He is an incel who is blaming minorities. Let's see how this goes.
Came across as very whiny, immature, insecure, and inadequate. And he said he was a racist. He said he was an incel. He used that term. He introduced that.
Yeah.
And that's defined as very misogynistic and
Oh God! Get the fuck out of here.
resentful and blaming of
Mm.
others. Blaming women, blaming minorities, blaming Jews. He's blaming so many other people, which is strange for someone that's in a leadership position to try to do.
Not really. Not if he's right. What if he's right and you just are ignorant? Have you thought about that? Have you thought about the fact that maybe you're wrong? No, I can't be wrong. No, you are wrong. Women have made everything worse. Let's just be honest here. And it's because women were never meant to be in leadership positions. They were never, biblically, they were never meant to be in leadership positions. The fact is that every time women are put in control of something, they make it worse. There's a reason why, and this isn't 100%, but nothing is 100%. But a lot of women would prefer to work for male bosses over women bosses. The truth is that in a lot of these cases, women will go into a field and they'll make it all about themselves and they'll make it worse. We've seen this in gaming, we've seen this in the film industry, and everything's about them and everything is about their want, and the whole thing has to change for them, and the dynamic has to change. You want to talk about minorities? Arina Zarutska was stabbed in the neck for no reason by an animal that was released from prison multiple times. Like this guy had how many different charges to his name, and he wasn't in jail forever. No, the fact is that a lot of these people are getting out in the name of social justice. You have a lot of these black activist judges that are letting people out. And in fact, a lot of these black activist judges are women. In fact, most of them are women. In fact, most of the white judges are women that are causing these problems. So don't sit here and tell me, oh no, he has no bearing on this, he's just blaming other people. No, he has a valid point on some of this stuff. I'm not saying I agree with Nick Fuentes 100% or anything close to it. I still think he's a gay Mexican kid, but at the same time, the people around him are they're so much stupider and they're so much more pathetic that you make him look good by comparison, and that's crazy to me. That's crazy to me. But that's where we're at.
I asked him about his own sex life, right? Because it's
Yeah, and as a Catholic, by the way, Pierce is like, oh, well, you should have like premarital sex. As a Catholic, really? That's your prescription?
it seems to be relevant because of this whole belief that he runs a group of incels, who are involuntary celibates, supposedly. And this is how the exchange went down. Are you actually? Have you ever had sex?
No, absolutely.
By the way, Pierce Morgan is a cuck whose wife sleeps with other men and humiliates him publicly. So Pierce Morgan is in no position to be lecturing anyone about anything as it relates to relationships.
Woman, and yet he's so misogynist in his rhetoric about women, so demeaning about.
So basically, this is what the entire thing is. Pierce lost the debate. He was humiliated. People look at Pierce Morgan differently now. He's getting called a cuck. He's being exposed. He had no arguments to combat Nick Fuentes. And now it's basically just a therapy session. Now it's bring on Dr. Phil and a bunch of other people to talk about how bad Nick Fuentes is, and we're just going to insult him. We're just going to belittle him. And the fact is that Pierce Morgan arrogantly thought that he had this in the bag, that he was going to be able to take down Nick Fuentes, and it didn't happen. And in fact, Pierce Morgan will never recover from this. He will never, ever reclaim the quote unquote standard that he had before. You may look at Pierce Morgan and go, he never had a standard. But there was an element there. And Nick Fuentes destroyed him so badly that even people that don't like Nick Fuentes, like Sargon of Akkad or Nux Taku, are pointing out the fact that he was looking pretty good by comparison, which is crazy. It is crazy. Nick Fuentes destroyed Piers Morgan and revealed him to the world as a cuck and a fake Catholic and somebody who is crippled by the idea of talking honestly about the unmitigated, unique failure of the black community in America and around the world. Anyway, brothers, that'll do it. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. See you next time.